The Property Lane.
Welcome to The Property Lane on UBC. My name is Judy Rugasira Kianda. I'm the Managing Director of Knight Frank Uganda. And on my panel this evening is Ms. Fiona Sasira, Vice President, Uganda Association of Environment Impact Assessment Group, Mr. Anatoly Kamjisha, Managing Director, Arkwright Projects, and Mr. Edgar Niimha, Senior Statistician, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, or otherwise known as UBOS. This evening, my panelists, our topic of discussion is population growth in Uganda and how it's impacting different sectors of the economy and real estate as well. Just to put things into context, Uganda's population currently is estimated at 45 million, I would say 50 million people. And Edgar, please correct me if I'm wrong. And it is growing at an annual rate of 3.2%, or 3.2 per annum. That is approximately 1.6 million people every year are being added onto our population. The population of Kampala is currently estimated to be sitting at about 3.8 million people, estimated to grow to 14 million people in 2050. That's just 27 years from now. Our country is urbanizing at a rate of 5.7% per annum. That is about 2.8 million people being added onto the urban population, majority of whom, approximately 80% of those people, are in Kampala. Now, whilst these mind-boggling statistics, can cause a bit of alarm, I think it's also a good thing, and I think we can reap huge benefits from the growing population. Everything is about numbers. It's a numbers game. The more consumers we have, the better for our manufacturers, the bigger our labor force if we can absorb them. And we've seen a lot of work that has been done. Infrastructure development, for example, to try and accommodate and support the growing population. Our road infrastructure has been improved greatly. Health centers have been built, schools are being built. There's telephone connectivity countrywide. At least in most places that you go, you can get access to telecom network. And we must give credit where it's due. But I think there's also cause for concern when we look at the acute housing shortages. I think there's very many numbers that are thrown around. 3 million houses that are in deficit right now, then another 200,000 that are required every year. There's so many numbers that are floating around, but what we know is that there is an acute shortage of housing in the country. And these are some of the things that need to be addressed. So I'm hoping that we'll have a rich conversation about this today. Edgar, I'll start with you. What demographic trends is the UBOS observing in Uganda's population growth? And how do you think that the statistics or the information that you get can help be leveraged to inform the decisions that government is making, or the private sector can use to plan better for this population growth? And you can use any sector of the real estate.
Thank you, Judy. Maybe a point of correction before I can give my take. I'm a principal statistician, not senior statistician. And then to confirm that indeed the projected population as of today by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics stands at 45.5. But that shouldn't, 45.5 million. But that shouldn't scare us because we have a census coming up very soon. So we'll be able to get the actual, but the projected for purposes of this discussion is 45.5 million people. Now back to the indicators. UBOS produces indicators on the population size and growth, like you've mentioned. And as far as I know, the growth rate is at about 3.0%. Because you can only calculate the growth when you have two census data sets. Yeah, so when you compare the 2014 and the 2002, it is estimated to be at 3.0%. So we have population size and growth, and indeed this gives you the dispersion of rural, urban districts, municipalities, and this helps in planning and knowing where to put your resources, especially for government. We also have statistics on migration. As we get more urbanized, people tend to move from rural areas to urban areas. And we all know the kind of effect this can have in our urban areas. I got some statistics from the Ministry of Land, and shows that the level or the number of homeless people is increasing by the day. So this could be an effect of having people migrate from rural to urban areas. There are very, very many indicators that we look at, but in my opinion, those are the major: population growth and size. Then the migration statistics are key to this end.
Thank you, Edgar. Mr. Kamujisha, coming back to you now. How do you think private developers can collaborate with government and the private sector at large to address some of the challenges that are posed by this growing population, with particular reference to housing and infrastructure?
Private sector plays a very big role in terms of making things work out fast, because they save the government from going through the bureaucracy of preparation, going into this, going into that. So now, because of that, private sector plays it, makes it very easy for the government, especially the private developers. They can acquire land very fast. They can acquire land cheaply. They can plan for settlement properly and quickly. They can mitigate high costs to make sure they are lower. So then, in order to get a profit out of it, very fast and easy. And in so doing, they can fill the gap where the crisis can be. They can reduce the crisis where government might find it difficult to fill that gap. So what is important is that the government can only maybe work with the private sector in providing what would be the most expensive areas, maybe like providing infrastructure, providing amenities like water, like power, and maybe also by supporting the developers to get the licenses quickly, and also the approval of the plans. Once those ones are done, then the rest, the private sector can do it faster and cheaper. And the collaboration can make it very possible for the government to solve such a problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamujisha. Fiona, turning to you now. What specific strategies and initiatives do you think your organization, or has your organization implemented to try and mitigate some of the challenges of this population growth in Uganda?
Thank you. And like you mentioned in the introduction, I am the Vice President of the Association of Impact Assessors. This association is regulated by NEMA. We are registered annually to, we conduct environmental impact assessments, where prior to projects are set up, we do assessments and assess how they are going to affect the environment and the people. Yeah. We are not government as per se, but we work in collaboration with government. And if I can talk about at the national level, of course, the government, we all know, has set up many policies. There are laws and regulations that really look at how can the population growth won't affect the environment that much, that the environment can coexist with an increasing number of people. There are laws that govern development. There are climate change initiatives at the level of government. The several projects that are being funded by World Bank in the country towards climate change, sustainability, resilience. And then at the lower level, as on the part of us as consultants, of course, we have also taken up some steps to ensure that these projects that keep coming up, construction, industries, they're done in a way that resources can be used efficiently, where we encourage producers to recycle materials. The recycling of waste reduces on the construction. There's no more construction. Instead, you first utilize what is there, you don't waste, you minimize waste, nothing should really be wasted. You recycle, you reuse waste, you reduce energy consumption, because when you look at energy consumed by buildings alone, you would be surprised that buildings consume much higher energy than transport and industry. Globally, when you look at the statistics, buildings consume 41% of global energy, higher than industries and higher than transport. So we hope developers, of course, those who come to us for processing permits, because also there is lack of awareness on the part of the developers. Someone buys land in a wetland, he has no idea that they're not supposed to put up these structures. The lawyers sometimes verify ownership and they don't verify the environmental aspect. So you come, you're a foreigner in the country, you buy land, when you go to get a title or to NEMA to get approval, they tell you it's a wetland. You lose money, you can't develop. So we hope developers at an individual level, when you come to our organization, we help you through the processes, and then we guide you through construction and operation on how you can start up your structures with minimal impacts on the environment.
Thank you. But you would admit that there is an environmental impact on the environment.
Definitely, there is a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, as the population growth,
Yeah.
especially for Uganda,
Yeah.
we highly rely on natural resources for both subsistence and production. We look at raw materials, and then when you look at the projected population growth, they're saying in 2030 we will be at 8 billion people globally. When you look at Uganda and the deficit of housing, you're seeing a huge need for infrastructure and real estate. So we are continuing to grow with a constant environment.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Viewers, we'll take a break right now and see you when we get back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Property Lane. The discussion is population growth in Uganda and its impact on the housing sector. Edgar, I know that UBOS collects a lot of data and a lot of statistics, which could be used quite effectively to determine and help the private sector, developers like Mr. Kamujisha, know how to plan for this growth with specific reference to residential development. Do you think you have this data, and how can you support private developers in knowing which investment decisions to make and where to do this investment?
Thank you, Judy. It goes back to UBOS's mandate. The Act of 1998 gives UBOS powers to supervise, coordinate, and maintain the national statistical system. And this system has ministries, it has departments, it has private players like Mr. Anatoli, it has the academia, civil society, and the like. Producing statistics is one thing, and producing quality statistics is the other thing. UBOS acknowledges the need to produce quality statistics that inform development processes. Development can be public, can be private. And UBOS has gone a long way in engaging private stakeholders in using evidence-based investment decisions. And this can only be done if you have quality statistics. How do they get these quality statistics? Because that would be the question on everyone's mind. Data dissemination. You might produce quality statistics that is inaccessible to the public. We have made sure data is disseminated through website, through the media, and through seminars. So private players are able to access this information at ease. We look forward to more partnerships with the private sector. Like I mentioned, we pick some of this data from them. So we must be able to have clear partnerships and collaborations for us to be able to pick that data. They might have it in raw form, but we are able to process and analyze it and make it useful for the public to consume. And then we also have a mandate of building capacity in the private sector and in government. Here we are able to teach the private sector the importance of giving us statistics or data, the importance of using data that you have produced to make investment decisions. Because if you cannot measure something, then it becomes difficult for you to manage it. So I believe UBOS has gone a long way in fulfilling its mandate and supporting the private sector.
Thank you, Edgar. Mr. Kamujisha, now coming to you with what Edgar's saying, with the data that he has, how and why are we not, as private developers, using that to inform the kind of developments that we do?
First of all, thank you very much for at least your communication. I would say that the information that is available is not adequate enough. Yes, it's there, but it's not adequate enough to be able to guide properly where to put what and when. And so at the end of the day, because of that lack of such a kind of information, at times you find that when you are making a feasibility study, at times you find that you find it lacking. At the end of the day, it leads to wrong decisions. And take an example. When we say that you are going to build houses, how many people do we have that don't have houses? Do we have that information? Okay, how many people that require houses for low-cost housing? That information is not there. How many people do we have that how many people require houses for middle class? Such information is not there. How many people that require houses for higher income? Such information is also not there. So at the end of the day, you find that there is this scanty information that is there. You use it to build a feasibility study. At times you end up getting it wrong. And at the same time, and another thing, knowing that how many people come from the village to the towns, maybe per month, maybe per year, so that you are able to know how many people have come to town, so that when you are planning, you know that the current problem was this, now there is another problem that is coming, so when I'm putting up houses, this is what I'm supposed to base on. Now, as developers, you know, we are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are solution makers. They just look at a problem and they create a solution to society need. Now, when we are putting up such a kind of houses, at times there are many things that overlap the other. One is about land issue, which has got maybe one is a private mile, one is lease land, one is the Kabaka land. And you know, all of them have different approaches in terms of titling, also have different way how you create, how you connect. It becomes very, very difficult. So at the end of the day, you find that maybe acquiring land here is difficult, but I can acquire it there very cheaply, but at the same time, the kind of people living there are not the kind of people that can live there. Then things keep on crashing. But in the collaboration with the government and with such information, an improvement on the data, and also with working together with NEMA, and when we put things together, I think with a proper planning, a coordinated planning, I think we can be able to address the issue. Really knowing that there are so many people in this area, which is like a slum, so we can do this, and these are the number of people. And when you look at the kind of slums, how they're coming up, is where everyone is putting this and that and that. But if you have like 10 acres, through coordination, and cooperation, we can have 1 acre, which we can put houses for these low-income miners or these slums. And we save like 9 acres, which we can build for middle class and the high, whatever. A slum of 10 acres, you can put so many people, and in an organized way, whereby the low cost, the middle, and the high, and still space even remains there. And also, you get space to put trees, you get space to put the flowers, you get space also to put drainage system, and also the roads when they are also put, when there is a coordination. So that is now where I find it easier to work with the government, to work with those agencies when we are all together. But if you are doing it alone, at times it's very, very costly and very expensive. So to realize a low-cost house becomes very difficult because of those external bottlenecks. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kamjisha. Fiona, back to you. The initiatives are there, the strategies are there, the policies are there to be able to try and enforce and implement the environmental regulations and requirements for planning. Clearly, it's not happening. It's evident. Where is the problem? And how can you work with the different stakeholders to be able to create sustainability, protect our environment, and really enforce adequately and stop the damage that is being done? Because with every day that goes by, if you're doing the impact assessments and every single piece of land that should be protected is being given the go-ahead and be developed, then what's going to happen?
Thank you so much, Judy. That's evidently like you put it. There are policies, there are laws, all the good things are there, but the challenges lie in implementation. And I think it's a larger problem. As us as Ugandans, we could start probably at an individual level and see what can be done. As our association, like I mentioned, we conduct environmental impact assessments, but this is on an individual level. And where you find people don't know, like I mentioned, someone is coming to Uganda, he's a foreigner, he has heard that there's a deficit of real estate, there are no houses. He comes, buys land. The land is a wetland. So where do we start? That land is gone. There's need for more education, the political interferences, where people have certain powers and they override the existing laws. And so many issues, people use the loopholes in government to do all the wrong things. And at the end of the day, it's us doing wrong things, but at the end of the day, we blame the government. It's us buying wetlands, the elites, we're the ones who have money to buy wetlands and construct. So that's why I say, before we blame the government, us as individuals, we can also look into the actions we take every day. What are we using? Are we reusing the plastic bags that we buy in a supermarket, or every time you enter a supermarket, you are getting on new polythene bags, which you reach home, you discard, you don't know where they go. So as we look on to put government to account for the challenges of the environment degradation, we also as individuals, of course there are simple steps that we can take as individuals. We look onto real estate and seeing how they can adopt the green building concept. At the end of the day, the small steps by individuals, we can't continue blaming the government. At least we've got somehow to act as individuals. But as our association, whoever approaches us, we take them through the relevant regulations, we make them acquire the relevant approvals, and then it gives people an idea on how to coexist with the environment. You can put up your structure, you can put up your development, you can operate your factory, but in mindful of the environment, the effects of these actions on the environment.
We've come to the end of our time today, but that was a very interesting point, which I hope we'll pick up on next week. Thank you very much for viewers for watching, and please tune in again next week for a continuation of this conversation.